All right,
Oh,
perfect.
shit.
We're on there. All right, guys, welcome back to Liberty Coast to Coast with Keith and Cody. Thank you for putting your phones down to the Pokemon Go. We're here with Jeff Carson from the Austin Petersen campaign. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm great. Guys, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff? There's a lot of people in the AP campaign who know who you are, but how about for those who don't know who you are? You want to give us your backstory?
Sure. It's quite a diverse backstory, but I'm a guy that's just worn a lot of hats. I went in the military right after college. After that, traveled a lot. I'm a military brat, so I actually grew up kind of all over the place. Um, after all the travel, when I got out of the military, I went back to school, got an MBA, spent a handful of years in the corporate world, and then dove headfirst into politics. Right around 30 is when I just dove headfirst into politics. Ran for office myself, then worked at a retail firm for a little while, and then really kind of brought all that expertise to my own shop that I set up this past January. And as crazy as it sounds, Austin was actually my first client. In fact, getting Austin as a client was what preempted my business partner and I to actually start our firm. So it's crazy how all that stuff works out sometimes.
Yeah, that's really
And
cool.
now we're a general consulting shop, so we're trying to help Liberty candidates, be better, faster, stronger.
That's awesome. That's
Thanks, man.
awesome. How did your own personal campaign go? Because I know you said you ran for office. Where did you run, and what did you run for?
Ooh, I got my ass kicked. That's how it went. I ran in Virginia 8, right across the river from D.C. So you think about like the military-industrial complex, like it's here, right? Like the Pentagon's in my district. I mean, it was definitely trying to climb Everest, maybe 2 or 3 times. Um, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I learned a ton, but at the end of it, obviously, I got my butt kicked. But that started all of this. So I'm just very happy that I made that crazy decision, a few years back.
Yeah, that's I think that's pretty cool now that you've kind of played both sides of that coin. You've been able to play the candidate themselves, and then you get to do the all the behind the scenes work and start driving campaigns. How was that being a part of Austin's campaign? And did you like or prefer being behind the scenes as opposed to being in the front lines, or what was your take on that side of that?
Well, I think your point about having played in both sides. What am I doing with my hands here? I'm gonna stop using my hands. There you go. There they
You're
go. All
doing
right.
you're doing the John McCain, I believe that was.
That's what that or the Austin Petersen, right? There we go. Um, Yeah, so actually, it's really helpful having run before because the sort of understanding, having run and understanding like what it feels like and what pressure the candidate's under and what they go through on a daily basis that obviously pays dividends now for advising candidates and campaign managers and teams as an advisor. So that's super helpful. I think I prefer being behind the scenes now that I've seen both sides of it. I think it's more fun to not be under so much pressure all of the time, and just be able to kind of work, right, and work with people and get people, moving. That's to me that's more fun. Like running teams, leading people, working with people. That's fun. Getting up in front of an audience of 200 people or 500 people or 1,000 or going on live TV, that makes my heart race like fucking crazy. So that shit's scary, man.
Uh, now, I know a lot of people who work for Austin's campaign been approached by Gary to work on his campaign. Have you been approached? Or are you doing any work on behalf of Gary? Do you have any advice for Gary? Um,
Um,
Yeah, that's a good start. How would you would you join Gary, and what would you change, or what would you find as their strong and weaknesses? What's your take there?
well, how about okay? So I think I'll answer. This is like a big question, right? First, yes, I've been approached. Second, no, I have no interest right now in working for that campaign. But let me start off by saying some positive things, right? Um, and then I'll take the gloves off. Uh, so first, obviously, Johnson Weld is without question far better than the other two major party candidates, right? Hillary and
By far.
Trump are just fucking god awful as
Oh.
kids, for different reasons, of course. A lot of the same reasons, actually, some different reasons. But I mean, having a Johnson Weld as the ticket, having somehow, some way, getting libertarians, even if they're kind of sort of libertarian, getting them elected, to the highest office in the land would, I think, be a huge needle-moving exercise for all of us, for this country. And I think there would be so many downstream positive effects from that. I mean, we can't even think about all of the positive outcomes from that, even if they're not that libertarian. They're not Hillary Clinton, they're not Donald Trump. So that's what they have going for them.
So they're not a socialist and they're not a fascist. It's kind of
right. Now, I mean, again, like I don't really have that much against Johnson and Weld. Like I said, I mean, you got to give them credit where it's due. They're both former two-term governors. They're both governors that were Republicans that won in Democratic states twice. They've got a lot of experience. So credit where it's due, man. I mean, they would be far superior. So as long as nothing crazy happens over the next handful of months, I'm going to vote for these guys. And, in the meantime, I'm going to get signatures and do what I can unofficially, right, for the campaign. I'm just, as the campaign sits right now, there's no way in hell I would ever work for it right now. So that's that. That's the nice thing. Now take the gloves off. Well, how about this? You guys tell me, what would you do first, and then I'll tell you what I would do. Either you, Keith, or you, Cody. What would you do if you're the campaign manager of Gary Johnson right now?
Keith, you want to take that first?
Okay, so this has been a pet peeve of mine, and I got a lot of flack on Facebook a week ago, but if there was one thing I would do, it would be to take off the kids' gloves when addressing Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people, Libertarian, Republican, Independent, even Democratic Bernie Sanders supporters included, who are really upset that there wasn't a stronger condemnation of Hillary Clinton. Everything with the FBI and Comey was a big, juicy meatball that was served up to Gary, and he kind of just looked at it, let it go cold, and threw it in a doggy bag. I mean, I'm pretty sure he made a comment 3 or 4 days after Comey's that was, she used bad judgment. Yeah. But this is a whole animal farms. Some animals are more equal than others, and this should be a huge point for him as a libertarian to call it out. I personally, in my state, am having trouble getting the total number of registrations for this exact reason. People want Hillary just as bad as Trump to burn, but they don't see Gary as the guy burning both of them. That would be my advice. That would be my condemnation. Other than that, I actually do think Johnson and Weld are running a pretty good ticket. I actually like Weld a lot more now that I've gotten to know him. Yeah. And I would even go so far as to say I'd love him at the top of the ticket, just like Mitt Romney said, because the man communicates. Whether or not I agree with what he's saying, he does communicate very well. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Jeff? Would you say Weld has grown on you or since the convention?
It's funny you say that, Keith, because I mean both of those things you just said would be recommendations, from me as well. First and foremost, obviously, be objective when you're talking about your opponents, right? Don't call Trump a racist on one hand, and then on the other hand say Hillary's a wonderful public servant and she just used bad judgment with her emails. That's nuts. That's nuts. Hit them both hard. Don't act like Trump. Don't do name calling. You can still be the adult in the room, but hit them both hard where it matters, where it's appropriate.
There's plenty of policy issue to hit them on. There are plenty of policy issue to hit them on.
There are plenty of policy issues, and the email issue is a valid issue. As a former Army captain, I had a security clearance, I had a secret clearance. If I had done even a fraction of what Hillary Clinton had done when I was in uniform, I'd be at Fort Leavenworth, for 20 years to life already, no questions asked, like done deal, buddy. Like you're out. See ya.
We never even would have heard of Jeff Carson.
No, like done. So I mean, you can hit her for that in a valid, measured, adult-like way, and get some really great press for it as well, and make our lives easier getting signatures. To Keith's point, so that's like a duh. Like give me a break, guys. What are you doing? And then also to Keith's point, that's exactly what I would do. If I was king for a day, or really, let's say I'm Johnson and Weld right now. Yeah, first and foremost, flip the ticket. Um, and it's ironic that we're saying that now, Keith, because we fought Weld so hard at the convention. But I agree. He's much more presidential. He's a much better communicator. He's about as libertarian as Gary Johnson. So, like, does it really matter?
I believe he was the original libertarian.
I believe that's correct. I believe he was the OG libertarian. Yes, I heard that somewhere. I forget where that was.
It was late. I don't remember where we were, but it was a late night.
So
might have been Orlando.
I think for a lot of reasons it makes sense. I think for two reasons it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. One, with Weld at the top of the ticket itself has much more opportunity, like exponentially more opportunity to go and raise money.
Well, that's why they brought Weld in, right? Was supposedly for all this fundraising, and that's why we had to vote for them. It would get us ballot access. It would get us, X, Y, and Z. But that was Bill Weld, not even Gary.
That's right. That's right. But what we've seen so far is that Weld at the bottom of the ticket hasn't really been able to do that yet. I mean, you've still got guys like Romney that are like, maybe, I don't know, I'll take a look, we'll see. But if Weld was at the top, it'd be a much easier decision for me, right? I'm paraphrasing Mitt Romney.
Yeah, I think that they're about ready to get Jeb Bush to clap. I mean, he looked like he came out yesterday and was about, he was thinking about Gary Johnson. So, I think they are doing some valid things, but to your guys' point, definitely they need to raise their volume in terms of hitting their opponents. I mean, they are opponents. They're not somebody they're trying to ride next to and maybe join their campaign. And if they are, then they're on the wrong side of things anyway. But the other part of that too is where's their speech coach? I mean, besides Weld being able to speak on things, where's the guy that's directing their rhetoric?
It's a great question, Cody. I don't know. On that point, I have seen Gary get a little better, to be fair, over the past month. He's not great in all his interviews, but he's certainly gotten better over the last month, I think, than what he was doing prior to the convention. Just my 2 cents. But real quick, just back to the point about flipping the ticket. I know it sounds crazy, but 2 big wins if they were able to flip it. I think if they flipped it, I think they could really go out and get Romney on board. Whether that was in a like campaign-centric way where Romney's like the finance chair, or potentially even more valuable where Romney is starting a super PAC, and they wouldn't be able to coordinate. But it'd be like, Weld says, okay, I'm at the top of the ticket, buddy. I need you to go to bat for me. Now go out and raise $250 million and bring all that super PAC money to this race in support of this ticket. Okay, sounds good, Bill. I got it, right? Loud and clear. And then the wall goes up, and then Romney goes and brings in $250 million. That's actually very possible. Romney has the capability and the network to be able to do something like that. In addition to that, you factor in potentially going and getting some Koch money as well. There's another several $100 million that's sitting on the sidelines right now that the Kochs are not using in the presidential race. So
we'll clarify that is the brothers of Koch, not Koch money.
Yeah, true, not Coca-Cola. The Koch brothers.
Or worse.
But look, bottom line, guys, is there is a path to victory here. But 2 things have to probably happen. 1, Weld has to take the top of the ticket, and 2, in doing so, be able to really bring in a ton of money, right? Whether it's hard dollars on the campaign side, right? That's hard dollars meaning it's $2,700 at a time per an individual, or it's $5,000 a time for a PAC, etc. The soft money is really where you get your goods, and that's what Romney could really help out with. Romney could bring in hundreds of millions of dollars via super PACs and the soft money side. And again, you go after the Kochs, you get another few $100 million. Jesus, this is now a formidable ticket. Yeah. The other key point there with Weld assuming the top of the ticket is, and I'm just making a guess here, but I think it's a pretty good guess. If Weld was at the top, he wouldn't for a second put up with Ron Nielsen running the show. And immediately you'd have Ron Nielsen out of the picture, and probably 1 or 2 of his cronies to go with him, and you'd bring in a professional, competent campaign team that could actually run that campaign, build the infrastructure, like support the state enterprises, actually build up the party, and in doing so share data, provide resources, et cetera, actually run an effective campaign. You get people that came in to actually do that, and who knows, they could win a few states. And if they won a few states, they get a few electoral votes. If they do that, they prevent Trump and Hillary from getting to 270, and it goes to the House. All the while, you're building a relationship with Paul Ryan. So who knows what happens, right? That's your fucking path to victory. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is actually relatively simple.
Yeah, and it's there, which is the first in history. The fact
Exactly.
that we can say that is there is huge.
You've never had this opportunity before, right? But if they don't do this, my best guess is, actually my hope, if they don't do this, fingers crossed, is that just nothing crazy happens. They don't say anything absolutely wacko or just do anything off kilter. And, we go out, libertarian ticket goes out, and we get 5, 7, 10% of the vote. That would be awesome, right? And that helps all the down ballot tickets as well, right? All the down ballot races as well. That adds an extra, few percentage or 5% or 7 percentage points to those down ballot tickets as well, potentially. So, in my mind, that's the best case scenario if we get par for the course going forward. But if they want to fucking win, there's the path. We just laid it out. So.
Yeah, I hope you guys are listening.
I'll probably get in trouble. I'll probably get a lot of trouble for actually saying all of that, but you know what? It's the truth. So.
I don't think you're out of line, though. As someone who worked opposite to him, and I had the pleasure of talking with Ron Nielsen a few times down in Orlando, I can honestly say of the two campaign managers, Jeff, you were the far more competent one, at least level-headed.
Thanks, Keith.
There was a lot of, I don't know how to say this. I almost feel like there's a cloud that hangs over Nielsen, and I feel like even Gary's people know it. But it's kind of a loyalty thing. He got them through 2012. He took care of them then. They looked to him for 2016. I think that is the difference between Gary and Well. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. My one thing going forward is, I do want to give credit where credit's due. I'll say the Bill Maher interview Gary did was probably one of the better ones I've seen him do in all of 2016. I think it almost has the power to undo how bad the CNN town hall was.
I haven't seen it. I still have to see that. So that's homework.
They've also had some pretty good campaign ads. I'll say that as well. Our criticisms of there and don't mean that we're not supporting this party, because clearly, like you've said, Jeff, they are far better than any of the options we have. But with the support comes criticism, because we have to hold their feet to the fire. They have to be accountable for the things they say, so that way they don't just get to run whatever kind of campaign that they want and destroy, and not that they would, but destroy any kind of viability that this party is building. I think we have to work for the viability we have built, and it's easy for us to lose credibility because we have people who just want to be naysayers. So it's important to hold our candidates' feet to the fire, and whether it was Gary or whether it was Austin, I think the criticisms would be valid either way.
Cody, to your point, I think I can't speak for all the naysayers, right? Obviously, but I think at least with us, and I can vouch for Austin on this as well. Like, we criticize because we care, because we actually want to see this ticket do well. We lost at the convention. Fine, great. Now it's the Gary Weld show. Awesome. We want this ticket to do as well as possible. Why? Of course we do. Duh. Because the better this ticket does, the better we all do going forward. The more we have to build off of going forward. So this is not like we're shaking our fingers at these guys saying, "Oh my God, they're so terrible." No, no, no. This is like we're trying to level objective criticism so that they improve, so that maybe they take some of it and they improve, and then we all win, right? Again, not all naysayers are treated equal, but I can speak for all of us, I think, and say, like, we care. That's why we're giving them a little bit of a hard time.
100%. 100%. Now that we've been speaking of Gary, if we were to transition this and look at the two mainstream candidates, or what's considered the mainstream candidates, if you had to pick one of those two at this moment, and they said that, Jeff, you have to pick which one you were going to be the campaign manager for, who would be your pick?
Hillary, because she's probably going to win.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Hillary has, say what you will about the actual candidates themselves, the campaigns that have been built, Hillary's is far more capable. The infrastructure is there. She knows what she's doing. More specifically, more accurately, her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, knows what he's doing. He's one of the best in the business. They have it locked down, man. They're good with data. They're good with messaging. They've got a crack sort of comms team. Like they've got like a war room where like anything that happens in the media throughout the day, they know how to respond to it like instantaneously. I mean, they're just very, very good at politics, at running a campaign. The Trump campaign's a joke. Have they improved since maybe a month ago? Sure, but like they have so far to go to get on par with where Hillary's at. It's comically bad. It's just a joke. You know, so that's what I would probably have to choose Hillary, but you'd have to have a gun to my head to make me do that.
What do you see as their biggest strengths and weaknesses as his counter campaigns? Like if you were campaign manager for Gary and you knew you had to go after Hillary for something and you knew you had to go after Trump for something and you knew how to stay away from something with Hillary and stay away with something with Trump, how would you work those separate avenues?
Wow. If I was the campaign manager for Gary, the campaign for Gary would look a lot different in that we would have recognized the low-hanging fruit. First and foremost was with the Republican Party. It was with disaffected Republicans. It was with the Never Trump crowd. Just as we were doing with Austin's campaign, right, where we were going after folks like Glenn Beck, Mary Matlin, Eric Erickson, et cetera, right? So we would have, with Gary, we would have, it wouldn't have been so much platform changes or actual issue changes. It would have just been some messaging changes, right, first and foremost. And we would have messaged to go after all of the Never Trumpers. And in doing so, we would have gone out and gotten them, first and foremost. Like, we would have done that.
Well, you guys were highly successful at that with Austin's campaign, right?
We were starting to be. I think if we had gotten the nomination, it was a no-brainer, right? By the end of June, Trump would have been just sitting there with his, with his posse of racist idiots, and we would have taken like the rest of the Republican Party away from him, basically. Now that obviously is just a step one, right? So it's not that you only focus on the Never Trumpers. It's that to begin with, you focus on the Never Trumpers, because in getting all of them on board, or a good chunk of them on board, you give yourself viability. You give yourself name ID, you give yourself credibility, ultimately you give yourself viability. Now you're in the running, buddy. Like, you're one of the three. It's no longer a two-person race. It's a three-way race. It's not Clinton, Trump, and and then maybe this other guy who I think is running as Libertarian. I'm not sure who he is. And then I think there's some lady named Jill Stein. No, it's Clinton, it's Trump, it's Johnson, right? Or it's Clinton, it's Trump, it's Petersen. Once you get in the game, then all the options are out there, right? So we would have started by going after the Never Trump crowd. We would have gotten a good chunk of them, and in doing so, we've gotten a lot of money coming in, a lot of earned media, a lot of name ID, ultimately a lot of viability points, if you will. And then we would have transitioned to go after the Bernie crowd, or the disaffected Democrats, or the people that just really don't like Hillary, or the moderates and independents, right? But in order to effectively go after those people, you got to do it from a position of strength. You have to do it as one of the three, not the outsider candidate who nobody knows, right? So that would have been my play if I was running Gary's campaign. But they clearly did not do that. They went hard after the Bernie bros and the left, and now you're seeing what's happening. Like, literally, Bernie is campaigning with Hillary today.
That's
right?
unbelievable.
So is it really unbelievable? I don't know. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was saying, to your point, I believe he did just officially endorse her in Portsmouth. I was checking the news on my drive in before we had this conversation. He has given her the full endorsement, told his supporters to jump behind her, and we knew this. We're rational people. We saw this coming. And I think the other threat was Jill Stein. I mean, if not Hillary, I think the Bernie people are more likely to go to Jill Stein
of course they are.
On policy than they ever would the Libertarian Party.
Yes.
And I think a lot of Libertarians, and I hate to push the party to the right, but I think they do fall on the right side of the spectrum, even though they're below that line.
Well, when you talk about party platforms, you have one side that talks about the Constitution, which is at least limited government, right? And they talk about the ability to have, individual rights, even though they don't fundamentally understand what they're talking about. They at least have that in their conversation. When you approach somebody from the left and you sit there and you talk about it's the right of the individual, well, then they combat that with, all our children are part of the community. Like, you don't, your children aren't yours. They're not sovereign to their parents. It's part of the community now. So it's harder to resonate, I think, with them than it is to somebody who is on the right. So I would completely agree, Keith, that, we have a base that is bigger on the right than we do on the left. Just in the same inside the LP of itself, I think there are more people that lean more right libertarian than left libertarian, just because of what the platforms initially stand for.
You know, I just for the sake of disagreeing, I'm not going to disagree with you guys on that point, but I will say that this cycle, it's almost irrelevant because of Donald Trump, right? Like whether that's correct or incorrect, what you guys just explained about how we have more people in the Republican Party potentially, or more potential for pulling Republicans into the Libertarian Party, I think you guys are probably right. But this cycle, to me, it almost doesn't matter because of Donald Trump. Because of Donald Trump, the Never Trump movement existed. Because of Donald Trump, there were tens of millions of Republicans who were like, oh my God, do I really have to vote for this guy? A month ago, 2 months ago, right? They're like, I can't believe this is going to be our nominee, right? And for that reason alone, we could go after them effectively, successfully, right? We could have done that. And we could still be doing that if it were, even as Gary Johnson, had he played this a little differently. Going forward, your argument perhaps comes into play, and again, I think you're probably right, but this cycle, I think it's almost irrelevant. I think this cycle, it's all because of Donald Trump, and he himself presented this opportunity. Hillary Clinton to a lesser extent, just because she's so disliked, but I think to a far lesser extent, because there are always people who dislike the major party candidates, but we've never had a Donald Trump before, and he really opened it up for us. And to be frank, I think we blew it. I think we blew that. I think now you'd be hard pressed to find a Republican that's like, oh yeah, I'm on board with the Johnson Weld train because they're fans of Hillary, or it's really, really tough to go after those voters now, given the way that Johnson and Weld have messaged. And I think because of your points about Jill Stein, and because of today, Bernie coming out and supporting Hillary with all his might, there aren't going to be a lot of votes over there ultimately for the taking. So I think they played it wrong. They went after the wrong group where there was very little hanging fruit, and now it turns out that they're not going to get much fruit over there. So it's unfortunate.
Now, let's say we fast forward a little ways. The way these polls have been going, we have been doing double digits in the polls since the convention. Do you foresee Gary making it into the debates? And how would you expect him to do?
My best guess at this point is, he's inching closer to that 15. I think what I just saw yesterday was he was at 12 in another national poll. He's been at 12 maybe once or twice already, but that's the highest he's been. But I believe that was a three-way poll. So when I think when the powers that be start to get antsy and Johnson starts inching up even closer to that 15, I think what we'll start seeing is four-way polls with Jill Stein. And I think Jill Stein being in the polls will make it very difficult for Johnson to consistently hit over 15 if he ever gets there in the first place. So I hate to say it, but I'm somewhat pessimistic on Johnson making the debates, because I think when you add Jill Stein into the mix and it's a four-way, it's going to be tough for him to hit 15. Now, I have no idea, ultimately, and I hope he does after they flip the ticket. But, I'm hopeful, but I guess I'm just a little pessimistic, because I think the powers that be have that ace in the hole in their pocket, which is we're going to throw in Jill Stein if and when we need her, and in doing that, that will take Johnson down a few notches. You'll have Jill Stein at 5, 6, 7, and you'll have Johnson at 9, 10, 11. 12, but I don't know if he tops out over 15 with Jill Stein in the mix.
Yeah, I would agree. And they're actually lucky. They kind of dodged a bullet, if you will, because Jill Stein actually reached out to Bernie and said, "Hey, the Green Party has your nomination. If you want it, you can take it from me, and we will give that to you." And that would have effectively killed anything on the left in his poll numbers. So they're lucky that Bernie didn't jump there. I mean, I think, like you've said, Jeff, we all expected Bernie to back Hillary. But, I mean, if he would have taken that, that would have been completely detrimental to the poll numbers, to being able to get into the debates, to almost, anything that would have pulled from the left. It would have changed their paradigm and how they went into their campaign.
Jill's sharp, man. From what I have seen of her so far in her campaign, which has way far fewer resources than even, Johnson and Weld, she's been really sharp. Obviously, I don't agree with her on most stuff, but credit where it's due, man. She's very sharp. She's great on Twitter. I thought that was a brilliant play to try to get Bernie to come over to the Green Party. And I think if Bernie really believed all that stuff he was saying, he probably would have, to be honest.
I agree.
He has been a politician for 40 plus years, so
That's all he's ever been.
right. And I thought Jill Stein was great about coming after Clinton hard, on the email stuff. Not just on the email stuff. She's been going after Clinton for a long time, but I thought that was very well played to go after Clinton hard.
Yeah, she got pressed for it. She got big press for it.
She did.
Oh yeah.
She did. All we got was, a bunch of libertarians saying, "I can't believe you just said that, Gary Johnson. What are you doing?"
Yeah, I think that was my exact expression. I had my hands on my face, spreading my "I can't believe what I'm seeing" type face.
Oh, jeez, man. Yeah. Well, what's that saying? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I don't know if that applies here, but if it does, so be it.
Well, that's I mean, it is. It's interesting to see the dynamic in what are considered the third parties. Just the way that Jill Stein runs her, her rhetoric in comparison to Gary, and I guess she does have less to lose. They're not going to be on all 50 states, so she can kind of say whatever she wants. She could be a little Donald Trump even if she wanted to, even though she's actually much more articulate than that. She's run a completely different messaging than the LP, and I kind of wish that they would see the way that she's getting reaction from it and how it's playing against Hillary and Trump, and kind of take that to add to what Gary and Weld have been doing, because I think that's really kind of what they're missing at this point. They have, like you've said, they have the funding, they have the name recognition, at least within the LP, and it's growing. It is growing, and they have that pathway, but they're missing that attack dog. And every campaign is supposed to have one. That person that either your VP candidate or the presidential candidate who goes after the other campaigns, because you have to make distinctions between who you are and what you're fighting against.
Obviously I can't speak for Austin on this, but my best guess is after the convention, if Johnson, if they had come in earnest to Austin and said, "Hey man, water under the bridge. Sorry about the whole gun thing. Oops, my bad," right? Because Austin was totally, he was totally like, "Hey man, let's just support these guys. They won fair and square. Let's rock and roll." If they had just come to him and be like, "Hey, you want to be our mouthpiece? You want to be our press secretary? You want to basically be the guy on MSNBC, CNN? That's whenever there's not a candidate that's required, but the ticket, the campaign still needs someone on TV going up against the Trump mouthpiece or the Clinton mouthpiece." Austin would have been phenomenal at that, and the ticket would be doing so much better right now because of that free and earned media. But they never even bothered. So that was interesting to me. Now I can't speak for Austin. I don't know if he would have done it or not, but I think he would have certainly considered it for sure.
Well, I think he kind of mentioned it, didn't he?
He might have. Yeah.
He had CNN where he did a really good lead-in piece for him right before the town hall.
I remember.
That was fantastic. I would love to see a whole lot more of that.
Yeah.
He argued Gary's platform better than Gary could ever hope to argue Gary's platform, and it was refreshing, and it did show unity. It did show that Austin is about the party. He did a good job. I wish Gary would reach out to him more.
Me too. One other thing, if I was Johnson Weld, I forgot to mention this earlier. I've had a few chats. I won't name names here, obviously, but I've had a few chats with state directors or regional directors on the campaign, people that I know, people that I like. I mean, let's be real here. There are a lot of people working for the Johnson Weld campaign that are good people, right?
Absolutely.
That's a fact.
Fantastic people.
And they're trying, man. They're like, yes, I want to hit the ground running. I want to build this infrastructure. I want to get people knocking on doors and getting signatures and making phone calls. But from what I can tell on the outside and from what I've been told, they are not getting at all, none, zero support, no resources. No data, no sharing of information, no hey, here's a list, or here's a voter file, or here's the 2012 Johnson list, in your area, at least for your state or your local affiliate. It's baffling to me that that we're seeing this, because you can't build infrastructure if you don't share data. It's like, what are you doing? So I don't know. Get that fixed first and foremost, guys, because you can't run a national campaign if you're keeping all of your cards close to your chest. You're not sharing your shit. And ultimately, and maybe I'm wrong here. I will say maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I don't see. But if I'm not wrong, then the only reason why you would do that, the only reason why you wouldn't share that information, the only reason why you wouldn't sign the paperwork that the LNC and Nick Starwark are offering you, is if you want to keep that list close to the chest, so that it's worth more at the end of the campaign, and you can sell it for maybe 50 grand or 100 grand. I mean, maybe 150 grand. I don't know. It's not going to be worth that much. So it's like, run a shitty campaign so that maybe somebody can make 100 grand on the back end of it. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, who gives a shit? Go win the presidency, right?
Yeah, or help grow the LP.
What's that?
Grow the LP,
right?
And the very least.
Just, I mean, all I'm asking for, really, at sort of the minimum viable I'd be happy with, is go run a reasonable competitive campaign, right? Anything else for me is gravy, right? But in order to at least do that, you've got to trust your people, you've got to build infrastructure, and in order for your people to actually be effective, you have to give them resources, and you have to share information with them. And it's like, that's anathema to these guys. I don't understand that at all. So my guess is that's Ron Nielsen, but it's just the best guess.
If anything, we could just blame him.
And can you comment on something? I've heard from a few people who were and who have been offered positions. They're not offering paid positions. They're basically offering internships for state director positions, is my understanding. I was offered a state director position, and I was told very expressly there's no financing, there's no resources to go with it, there's honor. And I'm not sure honor is enough reason to motivate people for this ticket. I could be wrong, but I don't know if you could speak to this to anyone you've heard of. Are we trying to run a campaign on internships?
I mean, obviously, Keith, that doesn't shock me at all. It would surprise me, actually, if they were offering paid positions right now, because I don't think they have those kind of resources in the door yet. That's not to say you don't want to pay your people. Obviously, you do. But for me, I think first and foremost, get your sharing of data and your sharing of information squared away, because it's silly that you have people in positions and they're just sitting there on their hands not getting anything done because they can't. That's silly to me. Second, make sure those people in those positions have resources, so that they can, resources being money, so that they can go out and get their job done and recruit people. And third, and I guess this is in no particular order, yeah, pay your people. Duh. I mean, even if it's not a ton, you get a productivity increase, you get a productivity boost like exponentially higher than what you otherwise would when you're comparing volunteer work versus like paid staff work, right? For some reason, when people have skin in the game or they're getting paid, even if it's just a little bit, like they are usually leaps and bounds more productive. So it's not rocket science, man. This is like running any company, any startup, any nonprofit organization. Hopefully, maybe they take some of this advice. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath.
Well, Jeff, we know you're a busy guy, and we may need to get you out of here soon, because I think you've got some business to attend to. So I want to make sure we take care of you. And we'd love to have you back. Is there anything you want to wrap up with us while we have you? Anything else you want to talk about that may be pertinent to you, or anything you've got going on?
Just one thing. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
First, yeah, guys, thank you. This is actually a lot of fun. I've had this conversation a few times, not on camera, not for all to see. So it'll be interesting now that it's on camera for all to see how that works out. But I love what you guys are doing, and much respect and kudos. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Two quick shameless plugs. Alex Merced, running for U.S. Senate in New York. Listeners, please check this guy out. He's badass. He's one of my new clients. He's just a good egg. He's a great libertarian. He's a great communicator. He's a hell of a backstory. Please check him out. He's a good dude. And Lily Tang Williams out in Colorado. Also, phenomenal woman, phenomenal candidate, has a story to die for. Just the personal narrative is incredible. Grew up in communist China, and her whole pitch now is, freedom is definitely the way to go, because I know for a fact. So check these guys out. She's not yet a client, but I think she will be soon. Check these guys out. They're great, and we've talked a lot of. We've maybe spent some time being negative here on the show. I don't want to wrap it up that way. We're moving in the right direction. We certainly are moving in the right direction. So as long as people like you keep doing what you're doing, and we keep rocking and rolling, man, give us a few years, but we're gonna fix this shit. Maybe a few cycles. It's gonna take some time, but I'm optimistic.
Progress.
Yeah.
It is progress. Well, thank you for being with us, Jeff. We do appreciate it, and we'd love to have you back if you're open to it. Other than that, guys, thank you for listening again. We appreciate anybody who stopped in to check us out. And I'll leave you with Keith to wrap us up.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you liked anything you heard today, be sure to check out Jeffrey Carson on Facebook. Be sure to check out Alex Merced and Lily Tang, two of our fantastic candidates running for office. And like we always say, we want to make sure you guys are informed and have all the resources you can so you can make Liberty viral from coast to coast. I'm more humble than you. Remember that. And tune in next time to Liberty Coast to Coast.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.